Good evening. This is Bottomline live on Metro TV with me, Winston Taki. Tonight we discuss a very critical issue that is necessary for national development. This time around, we are touching on the agricultural sector. We'll be discussing the case of biodiversity and also involvement of technology in the agri sector, how its contribution has helped alleviate poverty and also improved farmers' yield in the rural areas, and also how science over the years has helped transform the agri sector. This is what we'll be touching on tonight on Bottom Line. You can also send your conversations or your chat through the WhatsApp line on your screen and contribute to the discussion ongoing here tonight. I'll be introducing my guests shortly, but before we do, let's go for a break. When we come back, we'll start with the conversation here on Metro TV. Welcome back to Bottom Line Live on Metro TV. Tonight we are touching on biotechnology involvement in agri sector, how the whole system has helped transform the agri sector over the years, and also we'll be touching on this issue which is critical for national development. But before we set the ball rolling, I want you to know that according to the data from the Ghana Statistical Service, as at the second quarter of this year, the agri sector contributed by 4.6% in terms of the crops and cocoa, which basically gave an amount of 4.5% in GDP to the whole economy. But that is something that we would like to break down within the conversation that we'll be having tonight. But also, we would like to open the phone lines also for you to send your messages and contributions to the discussion here in the studio. Another issue that we'll also be touching on is the case of improved seed varieties, how it has consistently helped advance farmer yield across the rural areas, and also how it will alleviate poverty as well as climate-related discussion. I'm privileged to have here in the studio Dr. Jerry Imboyini. He's a principal investigator at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Good evening, Doc. It's good to see you.
Good evening. Nice seeing you.
Wonderful.
Thanks for hosting us.
Wonderful. Also joining us here in the studio is Mr. Emmanuel Okogbenin. He's the Director of Program Development and Commercialization at the Africa Agricultural Technology Foundation. He just joined us straight from his home country here in Ghana. Welcome, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here and to discuss our work.
Wonderful,
in Ghana.
wonderful.
Yeah.
How was your trip coming to Ghana?
Well, great. I'm excited that we'll be participating in a big event to herald the increasing influence of biotechnology in the agricultural sector. Is very crucial towards transforming agriculture into a viable business environment where farmers can get value for their time in the
Great.
sector. Yeah.
Great. Now, I want us to begin the conversation by looking at, first of all, breaking the conversation down to the layman understanding. First of all, when we speak about agriculture, there's this perception that agri just involve just the labor aspect, but the scientific aspect is what most don't get understanding with. But help us, when they speak about agri technology, what does it mean in simple terms?
Now, the issue is that people quickly forget that agriculture is science. And if it is science, the only way you can tweak it is by bringing in science into food production, all right? And a lot of things happen in the soil. The soil is where you have a lot of nutrients, and also you have your seed. The seed is where you have the genetics, and the genetics interacts with the environment. Now, when I say the soil, it's not only the soil, the climate, your weather. So we talk of agroecology. So that interaction does work very well. And so when you talk of technologies, you are trying to look at things that interact very much in that environment. It interacts with the environment to bring in good performance of that crop. So the science, that science of that interaction is what technology actually addresses. So we have all kinds of technologies that addresses problems in the soil, technologies that improve the cross performance innately. That is talking about the genetics, and the genetics can be related to pests and diseases. It can be related to the use of many things. So there are technologies to address different challenges you have on the farmer's field.
Great.
And so it's just about science. The technologies addresses scientific
Great.
issues.
Over the years, this technological conversation, does that include mechanization, agric mechanization from that angle?
Absolutely. It includes agric mechanization because your mechanization helps you to do things more efficiently. It brings in speed, it brings in efficiency as well. Now, you see under subsistence farming, people use hoes and things like that. Now, agriculture, like I told you, is business, and if you have to be competitive, any technology that can help you harness, agriculture for the value it offers you, it's just technology. So mechanization is one of them. If you look at what mechanization does, if you need to expand rapidly, you're not going to use muscle power to do that. You need something that can help you quickly cultivate a large area. Then you also need to control your weeds very well. Mechanization does that. So during your land preparation, if you prepare your land very well, you even reduce your cost. If you don't prepare your land very well, you're confronted with a lot of weeds. Then when it comes to spraying also, spraying pesticides, machine does that. When it comes to planting efficiently, machine does that. Many things machine can do. Processing is also one of the things you can do in mechanization. You want to make sure that your products hit the market in the quality you want it to be.
All right.
Mechanization does all that. So yes, it's part of the technology.
I'll come back to you on the biotechnological part aspect of agriculture. Let me come to Dr. Jerry Imbuyini, who is the principal investigator at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. I think we've spoken before, and that time we were concentrating on the issue of different variety of cowpea and how it has transformed, or the need for it to be commercialized in the domestic market and also to advance farmer yield. How has the conversation gone so far from your place?
Yeah, so I think the last time we had a conversation on this particular subject, we were in the process of getting clearance from the Biosafety Authority to actually get the seed closer to farmers. We have crossed that particular hurdle, and we are now in a particular stage that we are preparing for varietal release. So now this particular material that we spoke about some time back, that farmers were actually eager to have, is a step closer to the doorsteps of our farmers to be able to cultivate it.
When you say a step closer, that means that the processes, you are just a hurdle away, or so far government has given you the go-ahead?
When you say government, I'm not sure. We have state agencies that you deal with. So we have completed the processes in one of the state agencies, that is the National Biosafety Authority, which is under the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation. So now we are moving on to work with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And for us to start that particular interaction with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we have to conduct what is known as multi-locational trials, where we try to evaluate the material in different agroecologies where it will be cultivated. Then we submit an application to the National Varietal Registration and Release Committee, which is housed under the National Seed Council, to actually get approval for it to get closer to farmers. So we are in that particular stage where we'll be working closely with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture to get the material out to farmers.
We'll come back to that conversation, but I want to get your insight. And consistently, we know agric had been the backbone of Ghana's economy since independence, even before independence. As of now, its contribution to our general output seems to be dwindling. What you have conducted a lot of research, you have met farmer engagement consistently. What do you deduce could be the key factors that is leading to our dwindling contribution in terms of agric?
if you look at, you rightly said it, if you look at over the last couple of years, the service sector has overtaken agric in terms of contribution to GDP in Ghana. And when you look at it, basically, I see it as a simple kind of thing. You just take around Accra here, all the major cultivate areas that used to be farmlands are now turning to areas for housing. So what that means is that gradually our area for agricultural cultivation is decreasing by the year, and much of that is converted to other human activities. So the area that is available for cultivation is decreasing. Then when our farmers, the few who are interested in agriculture, when they go to cultivate, they face a whole lot of challenges. One, we talked about mechanization. So being able to access tractor services to prepare their lands adequately, then the need for labor to actually plant their fields. Then when they have succeeded in planting, we have a whole lot of pests and diseases that come to actually take over the farm. And once they are not able to efficiently manage these pests and diseases, the yield that they get is very, very low. So if a farmer puts in a lot of investment into a unit piece of land, and then the output that he's supposed to get, he does not actually attain that particular output, it tends to discourage such farmers. That said, I must say that within the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and even among our local universities, a lot of improved crop varieties and technologies have been developed. But then a lot more needs to be done to be able to get our farmers to come to speed with being able to produce crops in such a manner that they can get the needed kind of output.
Doesn't that threaten our food security as a country at the moment?
It is a yes and no answer, because when you talk to food security, there are two approaches to production. We have what we call sustainable intensification and what we call sustainable extensification. So extensification means that you are cultivating a large area of land to feed people. But then that large area may not necessarily give you the kind of yield that you can get for that particular area. Then we have intensification, where you have a small piece of land, but then you are able to maximize it such that the yield that you get from it will be very high, and it is enough to actually provide the food needed by the society. So if you look at it, though we are having housing and other human activities taking over much of our agricultural land, the little that we have, if we are able to sustainably intensify our cultivation on those pieces of land, we should still be able to feed the Ghanaian population and even do a bit of export.
But is there a policy document to what you just said?
So if within the National Agricultural Research System, and even as part of the Ministry of Agri Strategies, a lot of work goes on to try to achieve that. That is why year in, year out, a lot of technologies are developed in the area of just to help our farmers to come out with the best farming practices that can help them to actually come out with the kind of fields that we expect. That is why a lot of trainings keep going on. That is why under the Modernizing Agricultural in Ghana program that the Ministry of Agriculture was running, extension officers were provided with means of transport and all kinds, and district directors were given vehicles to be able to move around so that we can actually get our farmers to understand what they need to do rightly to get the kind of yields that we are expecting.
All right. Let me come to Mr. Emmanuel Okogbeni on the issue of the Open Forum on Agricultural Biotechnology. Why a forum? Why is it essential to have a forum to discuss the case of biotechnology in agriculture?
OFAB was created to facilitate the creation of an enabling environment that will support the promotion of biotech, all right, through information sharing, through advocacy, through capacity building. And relatively to other spheres of science, is still new. And we want people to have the right understanding. And of course, there has been a lot of peddling of misconceptions, misinformation around by people who don't understand it. They're antis.
What sort of misconception is here associated with biotechnology?
Now, science is driven by information, by data, evidence-based information. And when you speak about any subject without strong evidence, then you are not doing good justice. And a lot of things have been said that are not appropriate, not correct. And we feel that that has to be addressed. And of course, we want to bring everybody on board, explain to them what it is about. And the old tools we've used before cannot be expected to radically change things. So you can't continue to do the same thing and expect a difference in results. And this is why biotech is so important. So the forum was to provide opportunity for people to interact, ask questions, and you get answers to what you want. So that was what gave rise to OFAB.
Okay. We understand that agric is there and biology is there, but agricultural biotechnology, a combination of those words, in more simple terms, can you enlighten us on that?
Now, the biotechnology came from the understanding of what you call, I don't want to go into too much science, the DNA, you know, the DNA. And we're dealing with biology, but we don't understand it fully. So things have now gone to molecular levels. We can now explain the genetic basis of what we see happen every time. We didn't understand that into details. And so you will do crosses, but a number of things are happening, all right? These are a lot of genes. Some of the traits you see, like yield, they are governed by so many genes, and your ability to follow track, those things are not very easy. And then we are trying to find a more efficient way to understand things better and then deploy them efficiently. And so that's what gave rise to biotechnology, you know. And biotechnology has many approaches. You know, I don't want to use too many scientific terms, but again, we have what we call markers. We used to track traits before. And then there are situations where your conventional technologies were not able to give you the kind of results farmers want. And then we have to invent another way. So biotechnology does give you a novel approach to develop innovative products, all right? And it helps you to do things in a better way, and you have good control of them.
I'll be glad if you could just address this, like you made mention, misinformation of the consumption, that there are some variety of crops or let me say, harvested product that come to the market that lately, according to some market women, usually it takes 2 weeks for them to last in the market, but they take just 1 week and you see that their products are just going bad. Some have attributed it to the biodiversity, or probably, like you made mention, the DNA being altered, but altered as a result of that. What do you say to that?
Now, well, when you come to post-harvest issues, all right, it's not because they are biotech products.
But probably the texture, the quality,
yes.
All those things probably could lead to that.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say that could also happen with a conventional product. Now, when you improve a variety, you improve it for specific traits, all right? So even farmers, what we do in biotech is that we've seen situations where farmers really have good varieties, but they are lacking in one or two things that is not helping that variety to sell very well, or it doesn't help it to meet the market profiles or demand. All right. So we just don't say because of that variety should be jettisoned. So through biotechnology, like we do with genetic engineering, we just pick that gene and put into it. Now, if there are other factors, all right, like you mentioned right now, it's not because we alter that, because such traits may not have been improved for that particular variety. So what you need to do is to rework on that variety for that trait you have said is not good on the market. But it's not because you altered anything. If you didn't improve a variety for a trait, you cannot expect that trait to express.
Are there excesses to certain varieties, possibly?
No. There are no excesses. It depends on what you mean by excesses.
What I mean is there is this assertion, according to some researches I did, that when some GNAs are altered, possibly it affects the element or the gene that contribute to the nutritional formulation of that particular seed.
Well, now that could be a complex subject you are bringing in. Now, if you look at biology of crops, there are some traits that are linked. When you alter the yield, it reduces some nutrients. So it's just because they are linked, all right? And so, if, for example, like a cassava crop, which I worked in for several years, all right, there is a correlation between yield, all right, between yield and sometimes nutritional content, all right? So we try to break that relationship. So it's either you want to get yield for carbohydrates or you want to leave the yield at a level and increase your content. So that is the genetic relationship, all right? But it's not impossible that you could improve both. So yes, in that situation, it's because of the biology of that crop. They go together.
Great. Dr. Jerry, you have been engaging some farmers. Have you encountered a situation where you will have to consistently explain to some farmers why they need to adapt crop varieties in their farming practices?
Yes, but maybe before I answer that, let me add that with what the issue you raised just a while ago, sometimes varieties are developed for specific markets. So let's take it that a tomato variety is developed for processing, and then it is being sold on the market as table tomato. You don't expect it to behave the same way as table tomato. So when you see it behaving like that of the one that was meant for industrial processing, you may say that it is because of the improvement that was done on it. But then it was made for a specific and an exact purpose. But then you are taking it to a different market, so you don't see it behaving the way you expect to actually behave. So sometimes we have to look at the purpose for which that was done. And if you look at our local vegetable market in Ghana, for instance, you realize that we don't actually have a very strong seed industry in the vegetable sector. So most of the seeds that our vegetable farmers grow are either farmer-saved seeds, which we are usually used to, or when they bring in some of the improved seeds, let's take it at the hybrids and others that they bring that are brought in and sold in input shops, then those ones who are cultivated and sold. But then each one of those ones are developed for specific market or types of market. So if you are not careful, you may bring it, you may have a particular tomato produced in abundance, which was meant for a particular purpose, but because you are just using it for another purpose, you claim that it is not behaving the way you expected. But that isn't so. It's just because you are using it at the wrong place. Now, back to your question about interacting with farmers and then the issue of improved varieties. The success of any farming enterprise, as far as crop production is concerned, the first and most critical issue is seed. And we have gotten to a particular point in that. That is why even as a country, if you look at, as part of the mandate of the CSIR, we have the Plant Genetic Resource Research Institute that conserves most of our indigenous plant varieties. So almost all varieties that are indigenous to Ghana, they have the seeds or the assertions there that they are actually preserved for national development. Then apart from that, we also work on trying to solve specific problems within society. So if you have a particular crop variety, I'll use example of, let's take example of, we can use maize, for instance. You could have maize that is giving you, let's say, about 2 tons per hectare. But then that particular maize that is giving the 2 tons per hectare may actually lack some important nutritional components. So what we actually do in the area of crop improvement may be that you may identify maybe, let's take something like we have beta carotenes or even things like vitamin A and all those things. So through the breeding program, they could have some of these properties introduced into the maize. Then you come up with another high-yielding maize variety that the farmer can grow. But the advantage this time is that when the farmer actually grows that one and then it is sold on the market, consumers of that one have the added advantage of not just consuming maize, but having maize that have important nutritional components added to it. And that is where that is where most of our crop improvement program actually focus on.
But based on this, but before I even come on the maize-related issue, let me read a comment from some of the guests. So the numbers on your screen, you can be sending your messages through it, and I'll be reading it live on the show. Make sure that your contributions are direct as possible. This is Francis Tete. He says, it's an oil palm agronomist from Chifo Praso. He says, I want to ask your guests if they have ever done any yield intensification on their own farm, and what plant was it, and if they can share some lessons learned. So he is speaking about yield intensification. I think you scientifically will have what to say to that effect, but can you speak to that?
Now, yeah, yield intensification does happen at two levels.
Okay.
One, now you cannot get yield intensification if that material was not already improved for yield. So it's the innate capacity of that particular variety, and that's why breeders will work on them. First of all, you have to understand exactly what are the drivers of yield. Now, if you put the genetics there, you need to also understand. You mentioned adaptation right now. The plants, now it's about, we have climate change, right? A lot of things are happening, pest and disease resistance, and so on and so on. So you need to understand what agronomic practices are most appropriate for that variety in a specific ecology. The ecology is where you grow. Ecology is where is the area you are growing, and it differs from one location to another. You've got to understand what are the constraints you are facing there, and then get the right agronomic practices. He also mentioned, my colleague also mentioned here, that he mentioned intensification. Intensification means getting the best productivity you can get, all right, in a unit area, all right? So you are not going to continue to expand your arable land. These are fixed. And we've got to feed the same. We've got to feed increasing population, all right, in a limited land area. So this is where the intensification comes in. You have to be able to ensure that the plant or the crop adapts very well to a number of things, and that's why we talk of food systems resilience. And so, if you want to increase yield, you got to see what areas, what are the limiting factors. It could be nutrients, it could be anything. It could even be the soil nutrients. It could be the type of soil. For example, I don't want to use too much technical terminology. Your soil has some properties it must meet, and you have to be able to do with that. Fertilizers are normally being supplied, but not all the cases that the problems on the soil is fertilizer driven. There are many things you have to put together. So that's simplification, using the best agronomic practices to be able to produce.
You know, the key issue in most African countries, not just Ghana, Ethiopia, South Africa, most of the Middle Central African countries, is the case of income inequality amongst farmers. How can agricultural biotechnology help resolve that key challenge there?
Yeah, now this is where biotechnology is very important. You know, first of all, you have crops. Crops have different attributes, all right? In Africa, what we must do is that we must develop crops that we grow in a way that they can be very competitive to other substitutes you have in other parts of the world. I remember when I worked with cassava, maize was always the major source of starch for industrial use. But cassava is highly produced in Africa. Africa produces about 50% of cassava in the world. And yet Africa does not dominate the cassava market. And so what we did was to go back and try to see how we can select for cassava with high starch content. And starch now became very important crop. Cassava now became very important crop as source of starch. All right. So what I'm saying that the income inequality is because we have not yet developed our agriculture, all right, to address market needs, market profiles. He also spoke about market the other time. And if we adapt our crops all right, to meet market profiles, market demands, demand-driven products, then farmers will start generating a lot of income. And this is where biotechnology is helping us to transform crop from what they were traditionally into modern crops that best meet the needs of the markets. And that's what we have to do.
Now, you made mention of cassava. Can you enlighten us on the processes that biotechnological-wise cassava can help improvise to be more advantageous to farmers?
Well, now a lot of things are happening now in cassava. Cassava, as you know, does have a lot of problems. Just like we are here for OFAP Day because of cowpea. I would like to talk about cowpea as well because cowpea will be very good. But I can give you an example.
Okay, just give us cowpea and cassava briefly.
Yeah. Now, in cowpea, the major constraints, it's also very bad. In the major constraint of cowpea is that there is a pest. We call it maruca. All right, it's accountable. It accounts for 80% of yield loss. And what you would normally do under conventional research is that you will go back into the gene bank, or what you call germplasm. Germplasm is just the group of materials, that exists for that particular crop. It's conserved in many ways. And we couldn't find resistance to it. It does not exist in nature. But we know that there is a gene elsewhere that can control this pest. So what biotech did in cowpea was to bring that gene from elsewhere and introduce it into cowpea. And that's how we now have the PBR cowpea, all right? So we were able to control 80% loss of yield due to this BT gene. There is another 20% due to another set of pests. With little spray, just little spray, you control those 80, and then you get your full potential of yield. That's what biotech does. In cassava, we see cassava has a lot of problems that we have not yet solved. For example, if you harvest your cassava, within 48 hours, it starts deteriorating. You can store cassava in the house, all right? And this is one crop that generates a lot of income for people, and we're trying to see how to do that. But where transgenic has really helped bring in some sources, of course, we've also seen good sources through conventional technology, is in the area of cassava mosaic disease.
Okay.
We've already found a gene in nature that we are using, but through transgenics also, we are able to control that. And of course, you don't want to use one approach. The more approaches you use, the more the robustness of that variety to stand on the field, producing very well.
Great. I will want to also come to Dr. Jerry on the cowpea relation, because for you, we've spoken to that effect some time back. But before we do that, there are some questions that have come through the WhatsApp line. One on the GMO crops and other related issues that we'll be reading right after this break. So don't go anywhere. Keep your messages coming through here. You're watching Bottomline live on Metro TV. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Bottomline Live on Metro TV. This is where we say business at the speed of light. My name is Winston Taki. Tonight we're discussing agriculture through biotechnology in Africa, how it has transformed our current crop yield for most farmers across the region, from savannah to the south, to the east, to the west, how farmers have been able to survive with the use of improved yields and variety of seeds in the market. But today, we've been touching on the biotechnological aspect, and I'm privileged to be having this discussion with Mr. Emmanuel Okogbeni, who is the Director of Program Development and Commercialization in the Africa Agricultural Technology Foundation, and also Dr. Jerry Imboyini, who is the Principal Investigator with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Yes, so I'll go back to them to touch on some questions that have come through the WhatsApp line that you have sent, which I think we need to address. critically. I think let me just take one. One is asking, that is Sami from whom is asking, why can't tomato farmers in Ghana produce the Burkina Faso varieties that Ghanaian women travel outside Ghana for? Kindly ask your guest for me, which I would like to get Dr. Jerry to speak to that effect. And as he also touched on the current state of the cowpea industry. Cowpea is it the same as beans? It's a variety.
Yeah.
So it's basically gobe.
Yeah.
Gobe, the oil, let's say the source of gobe.
Yeah.
It's critical. Just this week we heard that gobe is going to 3 city come next week. That is the bean sellers are announcing. So just tell us the whole survivor of the fittest gobe. The industry, how is it standing now?
Yeah, so for the cowpea industry in Ghana, it's a seasonal thing. Right now, as we talk, most cowpea crops on the farm, or most beans on the farm, are basically at the flowering stage, just about to pod, and then they'll get harvested. So this is a time that we are relying on harvest that came from last year. But then, just like Dr. Okubeni mentioned earlier on, because of the very low yields our farmers usually experience, so in country, we rely a lot more on a bit of the grains being imported from neighboring countries, mainly Niger, Nigeria, and then Burkina Faso, just to supplement the domestic, the ones that is produced domestically. That is why a lot of effort is being put into ensuring that we're able to come out with very good varieties that can give us the kind of yields such that we can be able to meet the local market demands for that particular crop. And I guess not too far from now, we should be able to get to that point where our farmers will be able to cultivate the crop devoid of most of the hassles that they currently
It's now becoming costly to some market women, according to some few assessments.
It is expected, yeah, because if you look at the current way the crop is produced, farmers typically spray not less than 6 times, but some go as far as 12 times within the 2 months period the crop is on the farm. So if you look at that, means that basically almost every week a farmer is hanging a knapsack spraying. If I tell you that this year a liter of insecticide cost about 60 Ghana cedi, so that's 60 Ghana cedi, and he's using that for just a hectare. So if you should spray 12 times, you multiply 60 by 12. That does not include the cost of plowing, does not include the cost of weeding, even the cost of the seed and all other things. So definitely compared to another crop like soya bean, where the farmer doesn't spray, you should expect the cost to be higher because the farmer is spending a lot of money on spray.
Now, can I touch on the issue of the some market women complaining about going rather to Burkina Faso to rather buy tomatoes instead of relying on our local producers or farmers?
It is more of if you look at the tomato industry in Ghana, it's a combination of factors. So it's a combination of access to quality seed. It's a combination of issues of pests and diseases, and it's also most of the production is also done in the dry season under irrigation. So if you look at mostly along our river bodies, that's where these gardens are located, and then they try to produce as much as they can. Just that sometimes I'll just use experience from Upper West region where most of the production is done normally in the dry season. So right now, the areas of production are normally valleys. So as we talk now, those places are flooded. They can only access those places after November. Then they produce. Then eventually, when all those tomatoes are harvested, there's a glut. Because we don't have effective post-harvest management system, the glut comes in, then the farmers reduce their price. Then later, after everything has been sold, then there isn't enough of it in the market, and then it becomes a scarce commodity. But I guess our Burkinabe counterparts have been able to streamline their production in such a way that they stagger the production to make sure that almost at all points in time, they're able to have the fruits available for our market women to actually buy in sufficient quantity. That is something that probably we have to work a lot more closer with our tomato farmers in the country.
All right. Let me come to Dr. Ima. Interesting, there's some question that have come through. Emmanuel from Wager is asking, what are the possible jobs for biotechnology person, possibly a scientist in that case?
On the
opportunities. You
yeah,
had mentioned initially, you're talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area. Can you link it to this conversation?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do at AATF is that we are trying to say your technology should not be limited by boundaries. All right, we must look at regional markets. All right, where a country has a comparative advantage in the production of one crop, all right, it should not limit itself to domestic markets. We should facilitate movement of products from one region to another. And one of the key things is that, like my colleague said, the seed system is not well developed. And so you do not have seeds, and there are requirements. And we are also trying to facilitate policies that will drive registration of varieties across a region. So if a variety is good in country A and you have a very suitable ecology to grow it, you should be able to quickly transfer that material through limited test, and then it's released and it's available for farmers. So those are some of the things we feel that, like the case of the tomato you mentioned in Burkina Faso, Ghana can take advantage of that. And so that is where it comes from. Now, in terms of the biotechnology, biotechnology is a big field, all right? You use it, you use it for crop improvement. You can, it has applications even in the industries, processing. It has wide applications. And the issue there will be, what aspect of biotechnology did you study? I'm a molecular geneticist. So what I do is that I apply biotechnology to improve genetics that will enable the plant to perform.
All right. Now, what should we expect in the coming day where OFAB, that is, you've declared as OFAB Day to celebrate the strides in agri sector? When is it happening, the event?
Now, we have selected September 28th every year to celebrate OFAB Day. The first one was done in Kenya last year, 2021. And this year, it's Ghana, in recognition of the strides and progress Ghana has made. You now have your Biosafety Regulatory Act that was approved by the Parliament, and that's good to know. A lot of things have happened. We've just spoken about the PBR cowpea. You now have a very good environment for research in biotechnology, which is now happening in Ghana. And thanks to the government of Ghana, the scientists of Ghana, the regulators of Ghana that have facilitated that. There's a lot to celebrate now. You have the deregulation of the PBR cowpea. We're very proud of that. Ghana will be the second country, if it is eventually commercialized, to do that. Nigeria is the first country to commercialize the PBR cowpea. So the OFAB Day is to celebrate that, celebrate the scientists in Ghana, and also to celebrate Ghana's recognition as another big biotech country that is driving agriculture on a sustainable pathway.
How many countries are you expecting on that day?
We are expecting all the chapters of OFAB, 10 countries, to come to Ghana for this meeting on Wednesday. So we will be celebrating that at the La Palm Hotel.
Okay, great.
Royal
Dr.
Hotel.
Jerry, that day, in terms of, I'm sure you have a research to present on that day. I'm looking forward to that. But the cowpea discovery and also the policy direction, would there be any key thing that we should be looking forward to on that day as well?
Yeah, I think there should be a lot that we should be looking forward to. Like my colleague said earlier on, we have a lot to celebrate as far as advances in biotechnology in Ghana is concerned. Ghana started walking this path over 10 years ago, and you know that if in humans, after 9 months, we are expected to give birth to a child. If a child gets into over 10 months or 12 months before delivery, then that means that there's an issue. So Ghana has made a lot of progress, and that is why on that particular day, it is something that will be worth celebrating. Looking at the all what has happened in the country, looking at the level of public support, and then the level of farmer interest and other relevant stakeholders' interest in ensuring that biotechnology actually, the country reaps the full benefits of biotechnology. There will actually be a lot to look up to on that particular.
Great. I think, gentlemen, I think it's all too soon. We're coming to the end of the program. I'm privileged to have had today in the studio Dr. Jerry Mbuyini, who is the principal investigator with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and also Mr. Emmanuel Okogbeni, who is the director of Program Development and Commercialization in Africa at the Agricultural Technology Foundation. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure having you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
My name is also Winston Taki, and I'll be your host for tonight. More to come. And you should know that just in case, the name of a woman is called Hajia. That means the beans is good. And also when the name is called Davi Gobe. Gobe is very important. And we have that discussion, that effect. The price will go up very soon. And thanks for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.